everyone, and good morning. We're absolutely thrilled to have you join us today, and we want to welcome you to our workshop on partnering with lived experts to create lasting change through the lens of prevention. So my name is Melissa Gomez. I direct the Preventing and Addressing Child Trafficking project, which we like to affectionately call PACT. I'm going to share a little bit more about the work that we do later on in the presentation, but just briefly, so you can kind of center on the work that we do. We facilitate a peer network of over 40 child welfare agencies and their partners, and our work really is collaboratively about improving local capacity to prevent and serve young people at risk of or who have experienced sex or labor trafficking in California. We have a really small but super mighty dedicated team, and we're made up of a really diverse group of us, including our staff and consultants, most of whom bring critical professional and lived expertise to this space. And I kind of want to center by just saying that as someone who's been an ally in the victim services and anti-trafficking space for over 2 decades, I deeply, deeply believe in the transformative power of lived expertise to shape our policies and practices. And personally, I'm also really committed to investing in our lived experts, ensuring that they're well compensated and given opportunities for professional development towards leadership positions at absolutely every level. We had the privilege of presenting and sharing at the California Assembly during Human Trafficking Prevention Month just last January. And I wanted to quote a dear colleague of mine, Jess Torres, who recently spoke at the California Assembly when they said, survivors should not just be invited to the table, they should own the table. So today's presentation, you're going to hear from 2 of our programs at Child and Family Policy Institute that actively partner with lived experts to implement prevention initiatives across California. I think that's why a lot of us are gathered. I saw there was about over 1,600, right, folks from across the state participating in this convening together. And so we're really excited to just share this space with you. We are going to focus on a framework for fostering mutually beneficial partnerships between organizations and lived experts. And then we'll also share a few practical examples, resources, and I really want to leave time at the end for some Q&A to discuss questions or insights that you would like to share, because I know there's also a lot of knowledge in this room and in this space. So actually, as we go ahead and get started, I would encourage you to share your name, your role, and maybe something that you're excited about when it comes to prevention in the chat as well. So, and I see stuff, I'm toggling between 2 screens. So you'll see me look over here. That's because I'm trying to look at your faces and see the chat as well. And I see lots of folks that are doing great work across the state. So welcome to you all. So just some housekeeping. We actually are not in webinar format. We are in meeting format, but we will be having video and audio that's not enabled because this presentation is going to be recorded. But we want engagement. It's so difficult at times sitting behind a screen and not being able to interact with each of you in this shared space. And so we ask that you would utilize the Zoom chat as a space to share your knowledge, to react. We're also going to have some polls that we really hope you will participate in. And then you see our fun emojis on the side. We love emojis. So there's opportunities you can, click on the hearts button. Let us know if there's something that was said or shared that's really meaningful or impactful to you, and engage in that way. And then finally, I just want to encourage you to take care of yourself in the space and the work that we do, where it can be heavy and challenging at times. We know we can't pour from an empty cup. So whatever you need to do to take care of yourself during this time, please do so. So with that, we're going to just quickly introduce the rockstar host of folks that we have, lineup of folks that we have that are presenting together today. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Margo, to introduce yourself, share your name, your role, and a little bit about why prevention is so important to you.
Thanks, Melissa. Definitely feel like more of a backup dancer than rock star, but appreciate the warm welcome. So Margo Fudge, I'm the program director for the Youth Engagement Project with CFPIC. and I will have an opportunity to speak a little bit more in future slides about our program. But in terms of prevention, I like to think about, after spending 25 years in the child welfare space, I hope to one day no longer have a job, right? That we're able to figure out prevention so that I can retire. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Aliana to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you, Margo, for introducing yourself. Hi, everybody. My name is Aliana Montevirgin. I'm a former foster youth with lived expertise and a Solano resident. And I am a lead YEP ambassador. So right now I'm representing and supporting social services departments, 4 of them, which are Fresno, Butte, Glenn, and Yolo County. And prevention is important to me because it provides a ground of safety. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to Josie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josie Feemster, and I'm one of the regional coordinators for PACT. I oversee the Bay Area cohorts and Southern cohorts. I'm also a national speaker and a survivor advocate, and I bring over a decade of lived experience and professional experience to this work, specializing really in designing survivor-informed solutions and trainings, facilitating trainings, and helping organize and aligning with survivor expertise. When I think about prevention, the words that come to mind for me in particular are education and empowerment. I believe that the culture is a foundation of lasting change. And so through dignity, inclusivity, and empowerment, we really can create spaces where marginalized communities can thrive. So I'm really excited today to be here with you all and really hopefully share some of our insights and meaningful conversation through the chat, of course, and provide some practical tools that you guys can take back to your teams. And so I'll go ahead and pass it over to Umra to introduce herself.
Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Amra, and I'm one of the PACT consultants. I represent the Bay Area and SoCal cohort. And not only am I a PACT consultant, but I have many different roles that involve facilitating prevention education from my local roles to national and international. So I also work with the Mayor's Advisory Council, and I am working with the human trafficking, the U.S. Human Trafficking Advisory Council as well. Among the different counties that I'm at, leading middle to high school education on prevention is definitely very important for me. Because also not only because of my personal experience with being a C-sex survivor, but just how necessary it is to really have survivor leaders in representing in these spaces. The inclusiveness and being able to see your own experience in the leaders is really important around that prevention piece.
Well, you can
Thank
see
you.
why I said this is a rock star lineup. So these are all phenomenal, phenomenal individuals. And I wish we had more time than an hour because we could probably talk for hours about all these different topics. So I'm going to go ahead and move us along because, again, we do have a short time with you all today. But I'd like to start just by centering us on a shared definition. This definition was provided to us by Simone, who works with our citizen review panels, and I feel like it really encapsulates what we're talking about when we're thinking about lived expertise across many different systems. And you hear us talking from a human trafficking, anti-trafficking perspective, from the YEP ambassadors who are doing work to inform our foster care system, but really this definition can be used in many other spaces as well. Lived expertise refers to the unique ability to translate a personal experience to impact meaningful system change. And then secondly, developing lived expertise is a process, which really speaks to this professional development aspect, the work that goes into it, that takes ongoing training, support, and skill building. For many, many years, I've been involved in anti-trafficking space and victim services, as I mentioned, over 2 decades. And I think even, I was thinking back to a time when we were working in partnership and developing out community-based services and responses across the Central Valley, Fresno County, surrounding five counties, a human trafficking response, and building out services. And we discussed how important it was to partner with those that came through our doors. The very first thing that we did was meet with our clients and talk about how they really had to lead and to guide us in this process. Because for us, even at the very beginning of receiving that grant funding, which was innovative funding back in 2014, some of us were doing this work for the very first time. And we really had to depend on those that were coming through our doors to help us learn and to know how to do that work moving forward. But lived expertise is taking that a step further, not just the lived experience, but the expertise that takes time to think about how we can apply that to improve systems. And so that's really the definition that we're going to start with. But I want to ask us as we're moving forward to go ahead, and we want to hear from you and your feedback. So this is going to be our first poll. Why is it valuable? Why is it important to partner with individuals who have lived expertise to inform, to guide, and to lead our work? And we want to start with that question. So you're going to go ahead and join at slido.com. If you have your phone in front of you, you can scan that QR code, or you can go on the website and add that number that you see on the screen. And hopefully we will start seeing lots of responses coming in. And thanks, Michael. I see in the chat, you said you love this definition. And if you do have any issues joining, this is the only time you're going to have to join the poll. I think we have 3 Slido questions. If you have any issues with joining, you can also type your answers into the chat, because I think we have about 40 people with us. So it's not too hard for me to toggle back and forth. I love it too. You can see people thinking and typing as we're getting responses come in. Yeah, absolutely. Creates a space for respect, for deeper understanding. Why else? And Margo, maybe while folks are also responding here, you can share anything that you feel has been really important for the youth ambassadors as well.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And also would welcome Aliana. If you had the chance to see Aliana before this breakout session, she was talking about the importance of being heard when she was a child, first coming into care, and how important it was to be able to have a voice, and not understanding as a young child that that was an option, right? And so who better to inform this work than those who have experienced it firsthand? Like, I have education and 25 years of experience, but I have not lived it, right? So I would take the voice of that lived expert any day over what I think I know. Aliana, did you want to add anything else?
I think you just defined everything that I wanted to share as well. I just believe it's important for us to have a space where we can share with you that are serving foster youth that are currently going through the system right now, and the importance of how you guys can better serve your youth from youth that have gone through it themselves. So that's all that I would share.
Josie and Amra, is there anything else that's standing out to you? We're getting all kinds of responses here, but I want to give you an opportunity as well.
Yeah, no, I'm loving all of the things that's coming through. And I'd agree with what has been already said. One thing that we often hear, even from CDSS, is nothing for me without me. I think that's important to note, that like you cannot build out programs or support young people and meet people where they are without having them at the table, without empowering them to share what didn't work, what worked well, and how can we do better. And so really just prioritizing people with lived experiences and having them at the table. I really love this cultural humility piece. I think that is a big piece that oftentimes we kind of skim over, but it really makes a huge difference for young people that we're serving across the state.
Yes, everything that you all said, and it's so important to include the lived experience, expertise. There's things such as like the nuances that are challenging for people who haven't had experiences to pick up on like very specific things. So just having the lived experience involved can really drive the programs out, the goals and everything out in a much stronger way. And it's the most ethical thing to do to involve lived expertise to be part of those solutions.
Yeah. And I'm really, really happy to see, like, when we have these larger words popping up, that means a lot of you said similar things, and they're all centered around humility, understanding, empathy, expertise, cultural humility. And so I keep seeing these kind of same themes of like really engaging folks with lived expertise helps us understand that we have blind spots and spaces that we really need to be able to learn from to have effective programming and programming that's actually going to support those that are impacted most. And that actually is a great segue into this next part of the presentation, because so far we've really highlighted what lived expertise is and why it's so important to engage, but we also want to engage the importance of both meaningful and ethical engagement. To quote the World Health Organization, meaningful engagement is a respectful, dignified, and equitable inclusion of individuals with lived experience in a range of processes and activities in an environment where power is transferred to people, valuing lived experience as a form of expertise and applying it to improve outcomes. I realize that was a lot, but it's really about transferring, right, that power and listening to those with that lived expertise to apply it to system change. And unfortunately, in the many years I've been involved in this work, I've also seen us fall short as a movement and as systems. Oftentimes, and I saw this mentioned, we've tokenized individuals. We haven't compensated well, or in some cases, not compensated at all. We should never start from the assumption, particularly around human trafficking, when that experience is all about exploiting someone from profit, that we're asking people to volunteer to share their story and experience. We should never start from that space of assumption. We need to pay folks well and as professionals to do this work while they're bringing both their personal experience and their passion, but also their professional lens into the space. And we need to make sure that we're not exploiting folks' stories and defining them by one experience rather than acknowledging their entire person. And so that being said, I want you to hear directly from two of our consultants because they're going to be able to share this so much better than me. Jess Torres and Russell Wilson, along with another colleague, Angie Kahn. They facilitated a really unplugged conversation during a survivor space conversation that was filmed and is now available online. And Josie, actually, if you can add the link into the chat for the full video, that'd be great. I encourage you to listen in later. This is just sharing like a small segment of some of those unintended consequences and things that we want to really avoid and really center on when we're thinking about meaningful engagement. So I'm going to go ahead and, if you could give me a thumbs up that you can hear, that would be great. Good.
I felt more exploited by the anti-trafficking movement than I did by my pimp.
For so long, we've sort of been these puppets. And now it's like we have power and saying, like, that's not appropriate.
Like letting new people coming into it, it's okay to say to somebody, I don't want to answer that.
It lit a fire and it made my mission to change that narrative.
Because we don't want our folks to like come into this advocacy work and experience everything that we've experienced.
I said so many things in the beginning that people didn't deserve to hold.
The things that brought us to this place originally, those boundaries were intentionally eliminated.
And sometimes when you talk about it, people are more angry about the fact that you're bringing up the abuse than the fact that you were abused.
The beautiful gift in this community with others is learning that you have permission to ask for what you need.
We're all so much more than survivors, right?
So much was shared just in that really short clip, right? So again, I encourage you to please watch the entire video. It's incredibly powerful. one of the quotes that I love from this short clip is from Russell, where he says, "It lit a fire and made it my mission to change that narrative." Russell Wilson has been working with us now for about 6 years. He provides training, technical assistance, support to counties as they think about ways that they can support young men in particular that have experienced commercial sexual exploitation and labor trafficking, and really has changed that narrative. And without his voice and other men's voice in this movement, many of us would still think that sex trafficking only happens to girls and to women, and that certainly is not the case. And so his voice really truly has been central to changing that narrative and to bringing his knowledge into this movement. So I don't have time to dig into our guiding principles, but there's a resource I just want to share with you. It's called Engaging Lived Experts, and we really centered it around this concept of learn. It's really just a collection of principles that both the Youth Engagement Project and PACT have worked on together, lessons that we have learned in ways that we ethically and meaningfully engage and partner with lived expertise across our programs. And so our team is going to drop that link into the chat. And I really want to encourage anyone who is wanting to kind of either grow in or pursue or start for the first time and engaging well to take a look at this learning piece. These are all kind of the different buckets that we hit on in terms of our learning principles. L stands for listening and learning, E for engaging and empowering, authenticity and allyship, respect and rights, which is actually one of my favorites because it's really talking about institutionalizing informed consent, thinking about some of these dynamics around power when it comes to sharing information and ensuring that folks are compensated well, and how to do that in an organization in a way that actually sets up that space for individuals with lived expertise to have safety and protection of the rights that they bring into that space. And then nurturing and networking, which is really talking about peer communities and opportunities for professional development, and really thinking about mutually beneficial capacity building between both the organization and the lived experience leader that's coming into the space. So again, encourage you to take a look at that. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Josie, who's going to talk a little bit about this next slide and give us some great examples of how we can do some of those things.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. So yeah, I mean, to engage well with people with lived experience, you really want to inform, ask, and involve and collaborate and empower them. And so some practical ways that we've done that here at PACT, really. And so one of the things that you'll learn about in the upcoming slides is what we do here at PACT. And one of the things that we do is we host an annual convening. And so I'm going to give the example of how we inform, ask, and involve and collaborate and empower people with lived experience, our network of consultants. And so in the months, in terms of the informed piece, in months leading up to the convening, we meet regularly with our consultants to provide comprehensive updates on any training or policy initiatives, really, or anything around evolving the agenda in terms of the event that we host annually. And so this ensures that everyone is on the same page about the objectives and the logistics of the events. In terms of the ask portion, we foster an open dialogue where consultants are encouraged to ask questions, share their feedback on various aspects of the convening, from potential themes and session formats to logistical details. Their insights really help us understand what matters most with lived expertise lens. Another way is really that involved piece. We actively invite our consultants to identify areas where they'd like to contribute, and such as like leading workshops, facilitating breakout sessions, or shaping key discussions or topics that we should discuss that really align with the event that we're going to host. Through this focus planning, this session, we're really collaborating and working alongside to really co-design the agenda and the structure of the actual convening. And then, of course, we ultimately want to empower, right? And the way that we do that is like they're part of the decision making throughout the entire process. Their recommendations, their insights really influence the event and the format and the strategic direction that we take it. And then really just empowering them to steer the convening in a way that represents and serves their experiences. The other thing that I will mention is because I too am someone who is part of the leadership team at PACT, we really have that like survivor lens from that perspective as well. We know that some organizations, have survivor-led are survivor-led. And so we know that like we want to definitely remind folks that that's an important piece too, is to ensure that you have survivors at all stages and all levels of leadership.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pass it over to Margo, and you're going to talk a little bit about those foundational principles for organizations.
Thanks, Melissa. So I saw earlier in the chat, some of you are interested in learning about how you can begin to do this work with lived experts. And so just kind of touching on a couple things here, that it's really important from an organizational perspective to prepare to do this work, right? You just don't show up one day and say, today we're going to start working with lived experts, and not have done any of the foundational work to get there, because it requires a culture shift. Honestly, we have learned in the work that we do, for many of us that are in this professional human services space, we work 8 to 5 and we have our meetings during that time. Well, for us in the Youth Engagement Project, we have young adults who are maybe going to school, maybe they're working multiple jobs. And so 8 to 5 isn't always an option. And so you have to be prepared to change those time slots for your meeting, and not assume everybody can make it 8 to 5. You have to think about, virtual versus in person, and you have to think about compensation, which Melissa already touched on. Those things are just some very, very basic principles that need to be considered. From a leadership perspective, you have to be willing to cede some of your power, and know that there are other people that have vast knowledge and understanding of concepts, and not to just, we talked a little bit in that word cloud about tokenizing. Like, if you're really going to invite them to the table, then you have to be prepared to listen, hear what they have to say, and do something with that information, right? So we're not just providing lip service and, again, tokenizing people that we've invited with no intention to do anything with the information that's been gathered. So doing some of that, first making the commitment, then doing some work to prepare your organization for what this might look like if you're going to be having lived experts join you. And then that follow through. For many of our experts, their experience with child welfare, with juvenile justice, whatever system it was, may not have been positive, right? And so we want to make sure that as we're doing the work together and alongside, that we hold true to our word, that we're transparent, that we follow through, and that we don't, continue to let people down the way the system may have let others down previously. So I think the next slide, please. I think we're going to do another activity. So you guys shouldn't have to log in again. You should just be able to answer. But what ways are you already engaging with lived experts to improve your current work? So we kind of want to hear from you all, what work's already being done in this area. All right, so somebody said they're doing a focus group and a survey. That's great. That's a good place to start. Parent partner program. Okay, that is also great. And yeah, Kelly just put a reminder in the chat. If you're not able to get Slido to work, feel free to add it to the chat. So peer support work. So lots of like survey feedback type responses, assessment meetings, focus group and listening sessions. So definitely feels like people are already starting to dabble and engage in this work. Hiring lived experts and paying them for their work and knowledge. Excellent. That's great. And someone said too many to mention. So that's good. You guys are, it seems like this work is a continuum and there's a spectrum, right? So we have some organizations, some counties, some groups that are just starting to do work with lived experts and maybe are at the beginning stages in the infancy. And then you'll see other organizations that really have embraced this and have figured it out. So some people are hiring lived experts as consultants. That's fantastic. Monthly team meetings for lived experience, building capacity to share stories, stipend meetings. Yes, I've heard from several counties on the child welfare side that are, they have created lived expert groups, whether it's their social workers, if they've hired people with lived experience, creating a monthly standing meeting for them to come together, make sure that they have the support that they need to do this. Like Melissa said in the beginning, the work can be heavy, right? All right, thanks for sharing. So now we're just going to touch briefly on our organizational values at CFPIC. So we are a small organization, but we really believe strongly that working with lived experts is a foundational principle. And so we have woven it into our strategic planning across all levels. And there are 3 key programs that we're going to touch on, 2 that we're going to touch on today, but that really have leaned into the live expert sort of belief, right? One is the Youth Engagement Project, which is the program I'll talk about next. We've already talked about PACT, but Melissa and her team will provide more examples as we move forward. And then citizen review panels. We are not going to spend time talking about that program today, but that is one of our programs that does use lived experts to help look across child welfare at how the work is being done and reviewing some of those components to make recommendations on how we can do a better job. And again, using that voice of lived experts. If you want to go to the next slide. So just a little bit about the Youth Engagement Project. So we are a small team and we've been around about 10 years. We receive our funding from the California Department of Social Services and the County Welfare Directors Association to build capacity at the local and state level by using specifically youth voice, those that have experience in the child welfare system, to make system improvements. And so we work directly with counties. We're currently working with 20 counties to use their voice and their advocacy to make those system improvements. So the youth have projects that are very important to them. The counties also have ideas on how they want to use the youth, and we develop different projects, whether that's how to recruit caregivers for teenagers, whether it's how to improve educational outcomes for kids in care. And so we're working with a number of counties on different things that could be standing up an STRTP in their county and really using youth voice to help inform that. So it looks different in each county. If you can go to the next slide, please. We're going to play a quick video so you can hear directly from some of our youth ambassadors about the work that they do.
A multitude of different projects. So we go into our local RFA classes and we do a panel where we show the older foster youth in our county so that we can recruit more foster homes, resource family homes in Stanislaus County. Honestly, I feel grateful. I'm very grateful to be a part of this. I do have the passion in the heart and I love this population and I want to see every foster youth be able to advocate and talk about their experience and feel empowered and feel important. And so that's what it means to me.
The fact that the work that I do gets recognized and the feedback that I receive from other ambassadors makes me feel like I can be successful in life and I can also reach out my hand and help someone else be successful.
Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the work that's specifically focused on prevention, and Aliana is going to take that. I'm just going to talk briefly about a couple other pieces of the program. So we just added our 20th county today. San Diego County is going to be partnering with us to do this work, so we're super excited about that. But we are now at 20 counties. We have 37 youth ambassadors that we contract with directly as consultants. We pay them, for their expertise. And in addition to working directly with those counties, we work at a statewide level. So we receive requests from various entities for youth who are willing to speak to certain focus areas. So just last week, we had 6 of our youth participating in a complex care webinar that was convened by CDSS and UC Davis to talk about some of the challenges around complex care and potential strategies and solutions. So we are always happy to be in any space where youth voice can be helpful. And to be honest, all the spaces we should be in, right? But wherever we're needed, we're happy to show up and be there. We do a lot of professional development with our young people to not only prepare them for those meetings and opportunities, but also to prepare them post their time with our program. So many of them are, like I said, in college or recent college graduates, and we've added a coaching program where we're matching them with former lived experts that are now in their own professional careers to help prepare them for that next step in their professional journey. So I will turn it over to Aliana to speak about prevention. She's going to be on that same slide, I think, if you can go back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Margo, for sharing that insight about counties. So moving on to the youth aspect, the youth engagement project in prevention is important to recognize that youth and individuals with that lived expertise are the true experts. Our insight is very valuable when creating effective strategies. So when we include our voices as lived experts, we promote a sense of ownership and personal support and that representation within the communities that once served us as a former foster youth. Inclusivity in these efforts also help us lived experts to build essential skills such as self-esteem, leadership skills, advocacy, and professional development for us YEP ambassadors. A great example of this for myself is being able to participate, be a co-chair, and present at this. Participate in this. This empowers us to participate in decision making and ensure that there are more addressed foster youth specific issues. Our goal is to create meaningful impact and bridging lived expertise with professionals who serve us in different counties to drive that change and to strengthen our prevention efforts for communities and professionals. So next slide. All right. So I'd like to introduce the YEP project. Our initiative focus is educating youth about critical issues like commercial sexual exploitation of children. YEP ambassadors around California have participated in interagency leadership teams and have promoted mental health awareness within ILP programs all around. We've seen success through, they provide constant project support around dropout prevention with education for at-risk and foster youth. In Sonoma County, YEP ambassadors have been involved from the early planning stages of CPP, the Comprehensive Prevention Plan, ensuring that their voices shape important decisions within their county. Additionally, a lot of us youth experts have or currently are stepping into a lot of leadership roles, like serving in subcommittee chairs for mental health and substance use prevention. So next slide, please. So as we talk about the importance of youth engagement in prevention, I want to share a meaningful quote with you guys from one of our YEP ambassadors about the firsthand work that they do within their projects. So they shared, being a part of YEP has opened many doors for me. The project has connected with important people and organizations throughout the county. Through these connections, I have been able to volunteer at local events, participate in reformative discussions, and even been given guidance on pursuing my career path. I'm looking forward to what the future holds during my time with YEP. So thank you so much, and I'll go ahead and pass it on to Melissa.
Thank you again, Eliana. And I want to kind of model that feedback loop and why it's so important for us as also as allies to continually give feedback on what you're sharing and the impact that you have. And so I encourage those of you to write anything in the chat that stood out to you of what Eliana and others have shared so far. I know for me, every time I hear you speak, I just am really encouraged and inspired because I truly believe it's our young leaders that need to take us forward, and we have so much to learn from you. So I'm going to very briefly share about PACT and PACT's history and mission. I've already spoken to it a bit, but our mission is about engaging child welfare agencies and their partners to support implementation of a coordinated cross-system and statewide model. And our vision is really all about how do we make sure that that young person, wherever they're identified or being served throughout California, is receiving equitable and accessible services and supports towards healing and restoration. And so that is what we are all about. A little bit about our history. We're a multidisciplinary system to address trafficking within the child welfare population. We were initially funded by Health and Human Services. We were a pilot grant. We were one of 9 national initiatives across the state. And one of the things that was kind of unique about us was all the other initiatives were direct service initiatives. But PACT was all about collaboration, about improving practice and policy, and really building up local capacity throughout California to do this work on a local level. And so what was also interesting was that the same year PACT was funded, Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act was passed at a federal level. And that really, made a call out to states all across the nation to build out a statewide and localized response to commercial sexual exploitation. And so at that time, California's CSEC opt-in program was established, which provided funding for counties that wanted to opt in to SB 855 to roll out their local response, asking them to not only think about prevention and early identification of young people at risk or experiencing sex trafficking, but also about how they could partner across sectors. And recognizing that trafficking often is a crime where we see young people moving all across the state, and it was absolutely imperative and critical that county agencies were able to cross-collaborate. And one of the things I want to highlight here is that from the very beginning, PACT was informed by individuals with lived expertise. Part of our funding was set aside. And so at the very beginning, we had 2 individuals that consulted and provided support to us and 1 project director. And now we've grown significantly to over 40 counties. In the spring of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, CWDA approved that PACT's funding would be extended through SB 855 program funds. And now we have a facilitated peer network to provide technical assistance, capacity building, and support to those leaders across California. And we're really made up of a much more diverse network now of staff and consultants that have lived expertise to provide that support to counties. You can see here across California, we have 4 regional cohorts, and we meet on a bi-monthly basis with those local leaders that are the points of contact for child welfare. Each one of those leaders brings so much expertise and knowledge to the table, but really has a responsibility to allocate that funding to provide services and supports on the local level to children impacted by trafficking. I love this quote at the top about we are able to coordinate services if a youth is placed in a different county. It opens the doors for us and for our young people. And on the bottom, you can see this is the convening that Josie was talking about. We gather every year across the state in person, which is a really sacred time for us as a network to really learn and grow together and to create those peer connections, which I feel are so central to both prevention and intervention work that we do. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Josie, who's going to talk about some of the really specific examples of work that our consultants do with counties.
Yes, I just want to turn your attention to some of the questions that are coming through the chat. Can people join these meetings that we're talking about? And how can I bring PACT to my county?
Well, most likely you already potentially have PACT support in your county if your county child welfare agency participates in our PACT network. And so if you're not sure, our contact information is going to be at the end, and we ask you to just reach out to us and we'll point you in the direction of the county coordinator that does the work on the local level. And if your county is not involved, then we certainly would want to make sure that you have access to that support and those services. So I'll pass it back to you, Josie.
Perfect. Yes. So as Melissa mentioned, we have, PACT staff and a network of consultants who we work alongside. And so PACT consultants advise on the program from development throughout evaluation. Counties can request support. So in 2024, our consultant team provided over 500 plus paid hours of time to support development of local programming across the state. And some trainings have included youth returning to care, trafficking amongst peers, intersections of commercial sexual exploitation and labor trafficking. They've also provided case consultations and offered a team of social workers and partners who perhaps are struggling with support specific to youth that have experienced trafficking. The lens that lived experience experts can bring to create that sort of out of the box thinking and strategies around harm reduction and increase empathy and foster collaboration. And so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to drop the link into the chat, a request form that you can request, PACT consultants to consult or provide that support to you all. And then as well as the training flyer. So our team of consultants have created not just those 3 that I mentioned, but a robust training catalog. And so if you're interested, take a look at our flyer. There are many, and again, our consultants are kind of throughout the state as well. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that January was Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and the theme was creating a future where all youth are free to thrive. And so one resource we want to provide is our Human Trafficking Prevention website, where you can find our social media guide. We worked with our team of consultants to develop posts that are diverse and inclusive of various experiences. And so the shared resources and education that was shared with our social workers and providers, many counties took the info and really customized it at the local level to raise awareness in their counties. The next thing that we are really, really proud of is that we hosted our 3rd annual art gallery event during the month of Human Trafficking Prevention Month. It's really a truly unique opportunity to spotlight lived experience voices and their healing journeys through art. And so this event celebrated creativity and amplified stories of resilience and transformation. It really just is an inspiring and a very inclusive feature that I think, we just wanted to highlight and lift up here. Next, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rahang, who's going to share a beautiful poetry reading. So I'll go ahead and turn it over now.
Hi, thank you so much. So I just want to share a bit about this before I read it. It aligns very much with everything that has been said. The video that we watched, Russell and Jeff mentioned about the exploitative things that can come about like with our interactions or services that we're receiving from agencies and such. So I'm just gonna go in and read this to you all about personal experience and my encounters with services. It's called Open Your Eyes. I know there are things you may be going through yourself. Every day there's something new in your profession and personal life. I can't for certain say how this may affect your care and attention, the ability or lack to care and see the pain in someone else. This hurts far more than you know to people you've dedicated your life to helping. The neglect I've seen from early in my years is inexcusable. I can only speak on this now because I've gotten older. Along with that, I've grown skills in discerning what's best or just unprofessional. As kids, our lives in the direction of it is unfortunately in the hands of too many. Maybe you played a role in this. Too many that ignores the impact and power you have to steer lives in the right path, a rightful positive path that helps protect and redirect us from pain and exploitation. Sexual exploitation was my experience. The many times I came into your high school health clinic or community health services, so many times I caught something, another STD. Was this not concerning, or was I not a concern of yours? What really was going on in your head to not stop for a second and think something was not right with this? A young high school girl having sex since 12 years old. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomonia, urinary tract infection, miscarriage at age 15. And not once did you think that maybe this young girl isn't in control of her own body. Was it the color of my skin, the community that I lived in? Was this your expectation that I was destined for sexual degradation? I cried countless times. Maybe you didn't see the endless tears streaming from my face, past my cheeks, flooding the floor beneath me, but trust and believe I'm not the only one with this story. This is still going on, unfortunately. Please open your eyes, your heart a little bit wider, so you don't miss what the eyes may be blind to see, or what the heart and intuition would feel if you would just listen a little harder. Dig much deeper and feel for us, the next girl or boy, man or woman that enters your office, of which you are meant to help. Please don't neglect this role in your life. You have the power to help lead the next child to live their best and figure this world out. Thank you all. Thank you all. I just want to close off by saying that I had the opportunity to use this piece with San Mateo County. They graciously reached out to me and was so intentional about how to ethically utilize this poem within a training that they offer to the community, but also a training that is that it can be catered into different sectors, and one of them is the healthcare for healthcare providers, healthcare services. And so this has been used for the past year in the training field reporting that I provided, where there was an artist agreement that was created. And I just want to share that to say I really appreciate like this coming from this art gallery, and just a super intentionality behind making sure that this is used in ways that I was comfortable with as well. And I have the honor to continue this partnership for the next 3 years. I mean, extend it from 1 year, and we're going to do another one for the next 3 years. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. It's so powerful. I mean, this is it's always an honor to hear when you share your powerful poetry. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. So next we're going to turn to our prevention curriculum in action. So here are some prevention curriculums we know of that were developed with lived expertise. We'll drop it in the chat, our resource guide, where you can learn more about different curriculums that are, because there's so many, this is just a few of them here. So Safe and Sound Worldwide. And then you have the Cool Aunt series, Becoming Me. And like I said, there's so many more. And so feel free to download our prevention guide, which we'll drop in the chat, our resource guide there. And then next, we're going to share a video. It's the welcoming video to Becoming Me curriculum. I had the honor and privilege to be part of the development of this curriculum. Very powerful. The way that we framed it when we first started building this curriculum out is that it's a love letter to young people that we may never meet. And so we'll go ahead and play that video for y'all.
It's been a long journey to get this to you, and we've struggled to know what to say. We want to tell you the things that will change your life forever, but we realize that only you can do that. The best thing we can do is take what we've learned through our struggles and share it with you. When we were in the life, we didn't know that it was really the lie. Just take out the F.
So now, we're on a mission to help other beauties like you become who you really are. The journey you're on is hard as hell, and that's just keeping it real. Truth is, it may get harder before it gets better, but it will get better. And even if you don't think you're ready for a change, we're here for you.
This book is all about you, and there are many people who care about you, who you don't even know, that help make this book possible. When most of us were in the lie, there weren't a lot of resources to help us. Sometimes people didn't understand us and we were judged.
But the world is changing, and people who you may think are square see the truth about you. The truth is, you have infinite worth. There are new, healthy experiences coming your way, and you won't have to go through this alone. It's time for you to become who you were always meant to be.
Okay.
So powerful. I love that little clip of you at the end, Josie, where everyone's laughing.
Yeah, it was a good time creating that curriculum. So I'll just mention there are a ton of videos associated with the curriculum. So it's a lot of different ways that you can utilize that curriculum. Yeah, like I said, it's a love letter to young people that we may never meet. But we'll download the resource guide, and there's ways to figure out ways to get that training to you all. So, all right, I think we have time for Q&A now. Melissa, do we have our...
Yeah, so we are close to right at about an hour, and I want to do a time check with you, Michael, just to find out what time we're supposed to wrap this up, so we know if we have some time for Q&A.
Yeah, I think I'm supposed to shut everything down at 12:15. I think it's scheduled to go to 12:10, but we got that little buffer.
Okay, great. So we have a couple minutes left for those of you that can stay with us. We hope that throughout this presentation, you were inspired by at least, one thing that you can do to bring actionable change with whatever organization or program you're working with and supporting. But we are going to have a couple questions already planned for some of our panel, but you can also drop some of those questions in the chat and we'll see how much time we have to answer those. But I'm just going to go ahead and start with a question for our team. And that question is, what would you want an organization to know if they are partnering with those with lived expertise? And so I'll go ahead and ask that to our group. And then I'm going to check the chat in the meantime and see if we have other questions.
I can say that what I would like for an organization to know is to hone into people's skills outside of what survivors may be automatically placed into roles of speaking, mostly speaking. It's the first thing that we're kind of where a lot of us have started out with. And while for some there may be a genuine passion around that, but it's not the only thing. And just being able to support lived expertise around the many different kind of leadership roles that there are, to where it's it's not a part of, not to be ashamed, where if a survivor wants to contribute their role in a way that isn't as out front with the survivor piece, but just doing all of the other kind of kind of contributions, kind of roles. I think it's just really important to empower that, like the different kind of skills that we also have.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I mean, that kind of reminds me too of some really powerful work that was done with our evaluation team. So we had folks that were engaged in facilitating focus groups with young people and transitional aged youth across the state, and the qualitative data that came forward because of that intersection or support by lived experience leaders in those spaces was just phenomenal. And then not only that, but the team was involved in analyzing that data and then providing recommendations of the research. And so I love that as an example of how it's not just always upfront speaking, right? Elizabeth, you have your hand up. Are you able to unmute? I'm actually not sure. You can try. There you go.
Here I am. Here I am. I just wanted to acknowledge again, Umra, for your poem and just your vulnerability and thank you for sharing. My question goes to, I'm in Santa Clara County, and I have lived experience, child welfare, and I also am now a contractor employee with our social services, DFCS here in Santa Clara County. And so I facilitate a group of folks with lived experience. And I went through a period of really having to help folks make the adjustment from being mad and frustrated with the social workers that didn't handle their family situations very well to now learning to be a part of the solution. And there was some work that we had to do to get from point A to point B. I want to work on some curriculum type of supports for folks with lived experience that I haven't seen any out there as of yet. Now, I'm wondering if PACT or CDFIC has any curriculum or supports with helping folks with lived experience sharing that. I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay? My volume is
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
Okay.
Josie, do you want to take that question? We get this request all the time.
Okay.
I mean, I
Good.
don't think I don't per se have any specific training. I see there's another question around training and coaching and building capacity with lived experience folks. I feel like for me in particular, it wasn't until I met with other survivors. It wasn't until I met the team of community that I found. And I engaged in so many trainings with them. So there are leaders like Nola Brantley, Leah Albright Bird, Carissa Phelps, uh, Rachel Lloyd from GEMS in New York. So I really had the opportunity to work with other survivors that were doing this work while I was in my experience. And so for me, when I think back, is just having the community and having the ability to learn and sit with these folks to be able to understand how they kind of process some of that and how they share their story and how they don't, right? Because oftentimes people think that we need to just share our stories, but that's not necessarily what we need to do, as Amra was saying, right? And so some of the things I think is really just building out your own community and figuring out how to meet the needs. I think that is a key piece. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add in for that, but those are the things that really helped me be able to develop my skills. But again, that community is the big piece that helped me.
Yeah. And we do have a list, Elizabeth, of a bunch of different most of them are specific to human trafficking, but of folks that are survivor space communities where there are a lot of those professional development resources. And so we have brought in trainers to provide capacity building support with our team in many occasions, but I can't say there's one particular curriculum.
Yes.
It's like, that we could
Right.
offer, but we could certainly have a conversation with you offline and provide some of
Yes.
those trainers' names and content. So for sure. And I think
Thank-
we're like almost right at 12:15. I knew we were going to need more
know.
time. But I'm looking, there's a couple other questions in the chat, but thank you. And we can get back to folks if you drop your email in and you want those questions responded to. So I'll pass it back to you, Michael, because I know you need to close up this room. And
Well, thank you all so much. I'm really glad I got this session and got to hear you all. Folks really want to put their emails in chat. We'll give it a minute for folks to do that. I think you could go into the Whova chat for this session, but you'll need to go back and check for that as well.
But I do want to say is we have different resources here too that you can access. Oops, now it's starting to go into that resource. But our email addresses are here as well if you want to write those down, and feel free to reach out to us.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time today. And so we hope that we are able to connect in the future. And again, please drop your emails. We will take note of that and download the chat so we can connect with y'all.
Oh, I see, Angel, you're here.
Thank you, Angel, for being here.
Thank you
Bye,
all
everyone.
so much.